Now what's very interesting now, in the Hebrew version, Kanef becomes the spirit moving on the face of the waters, according to Muse's wisdom and interpretation of the wisdom and encoding that in the Hebrew Genesis, or BERESHYTH, right? Bemejamaria. Now, in the Egyptian or the Gitawiyan representation, the sailor in the water, he sails the waters in his ark, in his merkab, his boat, just as E does in the Akkadian version of the mythos. Now, the God or the Elohim called Kanef is also the Menfes, or the spirit that presides over the bow, which had become the pit hole or the tomb of the womb of the Mejameria, of the Rasit beginning. Now, the Egyptian bow in the Hebrew is called bohu, or the void. Now, in both of these, it is a place left unpersonified. This place is not personified, which is interesting, very interesting. Because in the later phase of personification, this bow of birth becomes the Phoenician Baev, called the consort of Colpia, the wind or spirit. Now, the bow was also personified in the Babylonian goddess, according to their mythos, as Bohu, which is linked with the Hebrew word used in Genesis. Now, the Phoenician Baev, it points back to the Egyptian Bab or Beb for the hole, the cave, the well, the source, or outtrance. Not entrance, but the outtrance. The original of all the Babs in later language, including, and this is what we found to be very interesting, Babylon. Because from our study of the Metaf Kedus, the Book of the Seven Seals of Kedemawi Haile Selassie, from the Haile Selassie Bible, the Amharic Bible, we notice that the serpent, right, and though we're going about 2 chapters ahead, the serpent is called Ibab in the Amharic, the Ibab. And the connection immediately was made, as we were studying His Majesty's Bible years ago, the connection was immediately made between the Amharic Ibab, or Bab, Ibab, and the Babylonians. Now, in studying Gerald Macy's lectures, and also studying some of the preserved other source material, that he referred to, and that is more available because of the knowledge going to and fro, and the information going to and fro, and knowledge increasing, we get to now see this link in the Egyptian Bab, or Beb, you understand, being explained as a hole, a cave, a well, a source, but clearly a source in the sense of an outtrance, not an entrance, not an entering, but more like an exit. And the original of all the Babs in the later language, including Babylon, is linked to this Bab and Bao and Baev and Bohu, and the Egyptian Bab and Beb. Now, that which is performed by the Elohim, according to the Hebrew Genesis, in growth in Genesis, is done by the Eli, or the Ali, or the 7 companions in Egypt. In the KAMITE, they were called the Ali, the 7 companions, most of whom can be recognized individually in relationship to the 7 elements, which, according to the Aquarian Gospel of the Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ, the Elohim represents these 7 elements, you understand, or the elemental spirits working as one. As the Hebrew Elohim, they may be delimbed or like delimited as, and lose their likeness, but they are the same 7 powers of eternal nature as explained by the true epignostics, or the Gnostics, and the true Kabbalists. Now, in one of the Egyptian, the Kamite, the native Kamite creation legends, and this was very interesting, shown by a monument which was restored in the time of Shabaka, it is said of the Creator, quote, "A blessing was pronounced upon all things in the day when he bid them exist, and before he had yet caused Elohim, or gods, to be made for Ptah," which would be in the Ethiopic and in true Shemitic Fittah, like we say, the Fitte Negest. You understand? Which has a meaning of opening and loosening, the loosener or the opener, like the Muslims have their first chapter called Suratul Fatiha, which means the opening and the beginning. Now this, it appeared to Gerald Macy, you understand? This has left another Egyptian mark on the first chapter of Genesis in the refrain, quote, "And Elohim saw that it was good." When we compare this with the monument that was restored in the time of Shabaka, the Creator said of the Creator, the original primordial Creator, that a blessing was pronounced upon all things in the day when he bid them exist. So on the day when Elohim created, he blessed. And before he had yet caused the Elohim to be made for the Fittah, or the Ptah, the opening or the beginning, translated as the law or justice, as in Fitte Negest. So the name Ptah in the Ethiopic is Fitte. Fitte is the Ethiopic Ptah, which is interesting when we connect that with Fatiha. We get into the root, and Feta in the Amharic, which means to loose or to open. So we have a clear Kamite or Egyptian mark in the first chapter of Bereshith, you understand, or Megemeria Zefitret, or Genesis. Elohim saw that it was good, which is uttered. How many times is it uttered in the first book? It's uttered 7 times over, in accordance with the 7-fold nature of the true Elohim. And the barakat, the blessing, is pronounced, and Elohim blessed them. And Elohim blessed the 7th day. And how many times did Elohim bless? He blessed 7 times. Now, in one lecture, to show as many Egyptian or ancient Kamite and Ethiopic marks in one lecture, you understand, we might have to put that off for another time to go through that a little bit further, but this is like a base, a foundation, because a lot of folks have tried to disprove our brother Gerald Macy, and there's certain things that needs to be corrected in what he wrote and put forward, but those things that need to be corrected are minor in comparison to the truth that that brother was willing and able to reveal. The other point we want to touch on is the Hebrew word that's employed for creating. Now, when Elohim formed the heaven and earth, or when he created the heaven and earth, he employs the Hebraic and the ancient Ethiopic bara, bera or bara. Now, the essential meaning of the word is to give a manifestation in form to material previously lacking or without shape. Nothing could so perfectly realize this as the example that we have from the ancient Kamites of the potter at work his clay. The potter at work on his clay. It describes the action of the Elohim in utilizing that Hebrew word bara or bera, which meant to, or is interpreted to create, but the essential meaning of the word is to give manifestation and form to material previously without shape. That's why I said without shape or without form. And the comparison now here is with the potter at work on his clay. So we have to ask ourselves, isn't there another native and ancient Kamite example that Moses would have been familiar with here?